Talk us through the worst-case scenario here.
How bad can this get?
I've got him.
We have location coordinates coming your way.
She's on a jet. Destination unknown.
I don't think you understand what they'll do to her when they get her out of this country.
Time's not on your side.
And Byron, the fallout from this is limitless.
Jo is trapped. Her location has been compromised, and someone inside the system may have just handed the enemy everything they needed to find her. But the biggest danger in Lioness Season 3, Episode 4 may not be the enemy waiting outside the CIA walls. It could be the person sitting inside the agency, watching every move Jo and her team make. After the shocking cliffhanger of Episode 3, the next episode is expected to push the story into a completely different level of danger, as Caitlyn and Byron Westfield race against time to find Jo before the enemy gets to her first. The problem is, every second they spend planning the rescue could give the traitor another opportunity to interfere. And if the CIA really has a mole, then Jo may not know who she can trust anymore. So, what happens when the rescue mission begins? And how could this operation finally expose the person responsible for betraying Jo? Let's break down everything that could happen in Lioness Season 3, Episode 4, because this time, the real enemy may already be inside. The biggest question going into Lioness Season 3, Episode 4 is simple. How will Jo survive after her operation is compromised? Episode 3 leaves her in an extremely dangerous position, with the information surrounding her mission apparently reaching people who were never supposed to know about it. That changes everything. Jo is no longer simply dealing with an enemy force in the field. She now has to worry about a much larger problem, because if someone inside the American system is feeding information to hostile operatives, then every decision her team makes could already be known by the enemy. This is what makes the next episode so dangerous. Caitlyn and Byron cannot simply send a team into the area and hope they find Jo. They have to assume that the enemy is watching them. One wrong communication, one compromised message, or one trusted contact giving away information could turn a rescue mission into a deadly trap. And that is exactly why Jo's rescue could become one of the most intense operations of the season. With Jo isolated behind enemy lines, the first priority will likely be finding her exact location and determining whether she is still in control of the situation. Jo has survived dangerous missions before, but this situation is different because she may have no idea how much information the enemy has about her. If she has been captured, she will have to use every skill she has learned to stay alive. If she is hiding somewhere and waiting for extraction, she will need to remain completely silent while trying to understand who is hunting her. Either way, Jo cannot afford to make a mistake. Her training in interrogation, manipulation, and psychological warfare could become extremely important here. Instead of simply fighting her way out, Jo may have to get inside the enemy's head and convince her captors that she is more valuable alive than dead. That could give her team the time they need to locate her. But while Jo is fighting for survival in the field, Caitlyn and Byron Westfield could be facing an even bigger battle inside the CIA. The compromised tracker is not something they can simply ignore. Someone had access to information that should have been protected, and that raises a terrifying possibility. What if the person who exposed Jo was not working for a foreign intelligence service from the outside? What if they were already sitting inside the system? If that is true, then Caitlyn and Byron have a serious problem. They cannot immediately trust everyone around them, because revealing the details of the rescue mission to the wrong person could put Jo directly back into danger. This could force them to operate quietly, keeping the rescue team small and limiting the amount of information being shared. And that is where the hunt for the CIA mole could really begin. Caitlyn may start looking at every piece of intelligence connected to Jo's mission, trying to find the exact moment when the information was leaked. The goal would be to identify who had access, who communicated with outside contacts, and who benefited from Jo becoming exposed. But finding a mole inside an intelligence organization is never simple. The person responsible could be someone with access to classified information, someone working through another individual, or even someone who has been manipulating events for much longer than anyone realizes. The more Caitlyn investigates, the more dangerous the situation could become. Because once the mole realizes that someone is getting close, they may try to destroy the evidence or create another crisis to distract the investigation. And this is where Byron could become extremely important. He may understand that the threat is no longer limited to Jo's immediate mission. If someone is actively leaking intelligence, then the breach could be much larger than one operation. There could be other agents exposed, other missions compromised, and potentially another attack already being prepared. That means Caitlyn and Byron have to make a difficult choice. Do they put everything into rescuing Joe, or do they stop and investigate the larger breach before it causes even more damage? The obvious answer is to save Joe first, but in the world of intelligence operations, one rescue can sometimes expose an entire network. If the enemy is waiting for the CIA to react, rushing in could be exactly what they want. Meanwhile, Joe's family could become another major part of the danger. With Joe's identity and location potentially exposed, the people closest to her are no longer safe. Neil and the children could be placed under even stronger protection, but even protective custody may not be enough if the people targeting Joe have access to powerful resources. This could create one of Joe's most difficult emotional conflicts. She's always understood that her work comes with danger, but seeing that danger move toward her family changes the stakes completely. Joe may be willing to risk her own life, but she cannot easily accept putting her loved ones in the crosshairs, and if the enemy knows this, they could use her family as leverage. That could become the central weakness the enemy tries to exploit. Instead of simply trying to eliminate Joe, they may try to control her decisions by making her believe that cooperating is the only way to keep her family alive. But Joe is not someone who gives up easily. The real question is whether she can protect herself, protect her family, and still help Caitlyn expose the person who betrayed her. Because if the mole is still active, the rescue mission may be compromised before it even begins. And the terrifying possibility is that the person responsible could already know exactly how Caitlyn plans to bring Joe home. The rescue mission could become even more dangerous once Caitlyn realizes that saving Joe and exposing the CIA mole may actually be connected. If the same person who compromised Joe's operation is still feeding information to the enemy, then every move made by the rescue team could be tracked in real time. Caitlyn may therefore have to create a plan that even some members of her own team do not know about. This could mean using false information, changing the extraction point at the last moment, or deliberately allowing the mole to believe that Joe is being rescued from a completely different location. The goal would be simple: force the traitor to react. If someone inside the CIA passes that fake information to the enemy, Caitlyn could finally have the proof she needs. And that would turn the rescue operation into something much bigger than simply bringing Joe home. It could become a carefully planned trap designed to expose the person hiding inside the agency. But there is one major problem. Joe may not have enough time for Caitlyn to complete that investigation. If the enemy has already located her, they could move her before the rescue team arrives. Joe may be forced to make a dangerous decision on her own, especially if communication with her team is unreliable. This is where her experience could save her. Joe understands how hostile operations work, and she knows that an enemy who captures an intelligence officer will likely try to gather information before making their next move. Instead of waiting helplessly, she could use that time to study her captors, learn their weaknesses, and look for a way to escape. Every detail could matter. A name overheard during a conversation, a location mentioned by a guard, or a small mistake made by one of her captors could give Joe the information she needs to turn the situation around. At the same time, Caitlyn and Byron could begin narrowing down the list of people who had access to Joe's operation. This investigation could reveal that the breach goes much deeper than anyone expected. The mole may not be a lone individual acting for personal reasons. There could be a network operating through government contacts, foreign intelligence officers, and people with access to classified information. If that is the case, then exposing one person would not solve the problem. Caitlyn would have to determine who is giving the orders and why Joe became such an important target. That could also explain why the enemy seemed to know so much about her movements. Perhaps Joe was not randomly exposed at all. Perhaps she was deliberately placed in danger because someone wanted to test how the CIA would respond. And if that theory is correct, then the rescue mission itself could be part of the trap. The enemy may expect Caitlyn to send a quick reaction force directly toward Joe. They could be waiting for the team to reveal its location, communications, and operational capabilities. This would put Caitlyn in an almost impossible position. If she moves too slowly, Joe could be killed or moved somewhere impossible to reach. If she moves too quickly, she could walk directly into an ambush. That tension could drive the entire episode as Caitlyn tries to balance speed with secrecy. Byron may push for immediate action, while Caitlyn insists that they first determine who is leaking their information. Neither option is safe, and both could have devastating consequences. Joe's family could also force the situation to become more personal. If Neil and the children are under protection, Joe may still worry that the enemy will find a way to reach them. That fear could affect her judgment, especially if her captors somehow reveal that they know about her family. Joe has spent years operating under pressure, but the threat against her loved ones could push her beyond her normal limits. She may begin taking bigger risks because she believes every second matters. And that could make her more unpredictable, which may actually give her an advantage. The enemy expects Joe to behave like a trained operative. They may not expect her to act like a mother desperate to get back to her family. The biggest reveal, however, could come when Caitlyn finally discovers a connection between the leaked intelligence and someone she trusted. This would make the CIA mole storyline far more personal. The traitor could be someone who has appeared reliable throughout the season, someone who understands how Caitlyn thinks and knows exactly how the agency responds to a crisis. If that happens, then the betrayal would explain why the enemy has been able to stay one step ahead. They did not need to break through every security system. They only needed one person on the inside, and once Caitlyn understands that, she may realize that the only way to catch the mole is to stop treating the situation like a normal internal investigation. The rescue of Joe could therefore become the bait. Caitlyn could secretly feed different versions of the rescue plan to different people, waiting to see which version reaches the enemy. If the enemy suddenly changes its position or attacks the wrong extraction point, Caitlyn would know where the leak came from. But this plan would be incredibly dangerous because Joe would still be somewhere in the middle of the operation. Using her as bait would mean risking her life to expose the person responsible. Byron may question whether Caitlyn is willing to take that chance, especially after everything Joe has already survived. But Caitlyn may have no other choice if she wants to end the breach permanently. And then comes the question that could define the episode: what happens when the rescue team finally reaches Joe? If Caitlyn discovers the mole before the extraction, she could potentially turn the entire operation against the enemy. But if the traitor remains hidden, the rescue could end with another shocking betrayal. Joe might escape only to discover that the person she trusted most was working against her all along. That would completely change the direction of the season and could put Caitlyn, Byron, Joe, and their families in even greater danger. Lioness Season 3. Episode 4 could therefore be more than a rescue story. It could be the moment when the hidden war inside the CIA finally becomes impossible to ignore. Joe needs to survive, Caitlyn needs to find the traitor, and Byron needs to keep the entire operation from collapsing. But if the enemy already knows their next move, then the biggest question is no longer whether Joe will be rescued. The real question is who will betray them before the rescue is complete.